Hi booktube, it's Gina. Happy Thursday. Hope you're doing well. It is a little bit of a gray day today. It's definitely the Pacific Northwest. Gray, drizzly. This is what we have to look forward to for quite some time now. Barring some snow, which sometimes we get a little bit of, which would be delightful. We've got gray drizzle in store. Luckily for me though, I'm going to be at Newport Beach starting Saturday, so I'm going to get a little reprieve from this gray weather, which is very exciting. I wanted to talk to you today about my November reading, do a wrap up, talk to you about the books that I read, read a little bit from a couple of the books, and just wrap up the month, tell you what I loved. Actually, I loved pretty much everything I read this month. The extra fun thing about my November that I realized as I was pulling together my notes is that I read 9 books, and all but 2 of them, and possibly even one of them, were books that were a direct result of seeing someone recommend them on booktube, hearing a conversation on booktube. So they were inspired by my participation in this platform, which just delights me to no end. I'm so excited to have this time to chat with you, to watch your videos, to get comments from people with recommendations in my comments field, which I just enjoy so much. One thing I would love to get some feedback on from you is, how do you keep track of what you want to read when you see somebody recommend it? What I'm finding is that I can oftentimes remember someone recommended a book on booktube or in a comment, but I can't always remember who it was. I'm trying to write it down in my little handy dandy traveler's notebook here, but that doesn't always seem to work very well. I don't always have it handy when I'm watching booktube or when I'm responding to comments. So if you have recommended a book to me in the comments, thank you so much for doing that. I do pay attention. I do try to write them down, and I will try to remember who has recommended it. But if I don't, and it was you, let me know. So for November, I read 9 books, and I wanted to start out with my holdover from Victober, which is Bleak House. And Bleak House, of course, by Charles Dickens. The reason that I read this was for Victober. I saw Katie at Books and Things talk about this repeatedly, and I don't think it's her favorite Dickens, but if it weren't for Katie, I probably would not really have Dickens on my radar. So I'm so excited to have read this for Victober. I did spill it over into November. I had a couple of things in October that prevented me from reading as much as I was hoping. So this got finished in November. And I did want to read a passage out of this book because I love the language of Dickens, although I personally do find it a little bit challenging. Not because any of the words are difficult, but because his sentences and paragraphs are long. So I thought I would share this one. This is a good example to me of some of the depth and richness of Dickens' language. And I loved it, but I admit this paragraph, I read it twice and went, what is he saying? Oh yeah, there it is. So this is about Mr. Tulkinghorn, who is having a glass of wine with his dinner at home. And it starts, in his lowering magazine of dust, the universal article into which his papers and himself and all his clients and all things of earth, animate and inanimate, are resolving, Mr. Tulkinghorn sits at one of the open windows enjoying a bottle of old port. Though a hard-grained man, close, dry, and silent, he can enjoy old wine with the best. He has a priceless bin of port in some artful cellar under the fields, which is one of his many secrets. When he dines alone in chambers, as he has dined today, and has a bit of fish and steak or chicken brought in from the coffee house, he descends with a candle to the echoing regions below the deserted mansion, and, heralded by a remote reverberation of thundering doors, comes gravely back, encircled by an earthly atmosphere, and carrying a bottle from which he pours a radiant nectar, 20 years old, that blushes in the glass to find itself so famous and fills the whole room with the fragrance of southern grapes. Now, I read that paragraph, when I was reading this book, I read that paragraph twice. I was like, oh yeah, he went down to the cellar to get a bottle of port. But it took him a whole paragraph to say that. And you really have to settle into the language of Bleak House, of Dickens. This book, though, what's so wonderful about it is it starts out with a zillion characters, what seem like a zillion plot lines, and Dickens just brings them all together like magic at the end. And I'm always so impressed by that. And it was just a rip-roaring good story, which makes it the best. Next, I read Q's Legacy by Helene Hanff. Helene Hanff wrote the book 84 Charing Cross Road, which is one of my favorite, actually it's one of my favorite movies. I love the book also, but I think the movie is actually even better than the book. And I've loved that for a long time, but I hadn't really had Helene Hanff's other books on my radar at all until I saw Juan at Just Juan Reader talk about this. And I bought this book. I bought a few of her other memoir style books, and I'm planning to read them all. I loved this book, absolutely loved it. I love Helene Hanff. I love her voice. I love her sense of humor. She's not actually a spectacular writer, which I think probably is why she didn't get more recognition in her lifetime, because her writing it's not great, but she is such a fantastic person, so interesting, so funny, a little snarky, self-deprecating, that I love her style. So I read Q's Legacy. Thank you to Just One Reader. Next, I read The Fairacre Festival by Miss Reed, a very short little novella about the Fairacre Church getting stuck. A tree goes through the roof and they need to raise some money to repair it. And of course, this book is about the trials and tribulations associated with getting money in a small village. I love this book. Of course, I love all of my Miss Reed books. This book was not recommended, so this was one I just read because I found it I think I bought this at Half Price Books. It was short. I wanted to read it, so this bounded up to the top of my list. Next, I read a book called Begin Again, which is by Ursula Orange. It is a furrowed middlebrow Dean Street Press edition. I read it on my Kindle, so I don't have a paper copy. I would love to find a paper copy, though. This is one of my mid-century ladies of the 20th century who is going to be a favorite. This was a recommendation on Sean the Bookmaniac's channel, and I loved this book, absolutely loved it. Story of some youngish ladies who are just trying to find their way in the world in London. Do they want to live in the country? Do they want to live in the city? They are just trying to come to grips with growing up, with moving out on their own, with dating, with getting married, with breaking away from their parents. And it was a fantastic story. I'm definitely going to add Ursula Orange to my list of authors to keep my eyes open for when I'm vintage book shopping, because she was wonderful. Dean Street Press, by the way, does have a free ebook. I just downloaded a new free ebook from their website. I think it's Dean Street Press. I'll link it down below. But if you like these 20th century, early 20th century sort of underrepresented ladies, they are reprinting a lot of these under the furrowed middlebrow imprint, and it's wonderful. I absolutely love it. And they do a free weekly ebook. I'm not sure if it's every single week, but most weeks I've gotten a free book, and I'll link it below so you can see. But if you can get a copy of the free. It's not Begin Again. It was something different that I just downloaded, but it's a wonderful publisher that's reprinting a lot of these underappreciated ladies. Next, I read Beloved by Toni Morrison. Oh, I loved this book. Loved it. I read this as a buddy read with Kelly, my friend at Books I'm Not Reading. And this book, all I can say is if you have not read it, read it. I can't believe all of these years I have not read this book. It is beautiful. The writing is amazing. It's beautiful. It's devastating. It is. I don't even want to tell you what it's about because it was so, I went into it really not knowing much. I hadn't seen the movie. I knew it was about slavery, I thought, but I didn't really know much else about it. Toni Morrison is a master at telling you a story, at weaving together a tale without really telling you what she's doing. Like if you remember when you were learning how to write in high school or in college, and the teachers would always say, show, don't tell, show, don't tell. Toni Morrison is a master of that. She weaves a story without really telling you anything. All of a sudden you've read this section and I would look back and say, wait a minute, did she just say what I thought she said? And I'd go back and look at it and she did. Oh my God, it was just so powerful. Powerful, amazing stuff. I'm gonna get kicked out of booktube for this, but I wrote in this book. I dog-eared pages. I put in stickies. This is one I definitely want to reread. This is shot to the top of my, probably one of my top 5 books of the year. It was just spectacular. So thank you to Kelly for reading this with me, because I've had this on my shelf for probably 15 years and have not read it. So I'm so glad that I finally read that book because it was amazing. Next, I read The Vanderbeekers Make a Wish by Karina Glaser. And I don't have Make a Wish. I read that one on my Kindle, but I do have this copy of Vanderbeekers and the Hidden Garden, and I thought I'd show you this one instead, just because the cover is so pretty. I will pop up a copy of the Vanderbeekers Make a Wish here, so you can see the cover of that. I love the Vanderbeekers story. They are a family. It always focuses on the kids. It's a very family-oriented story. They live in Harlem. The kids are always running around trying to, in Make-A-Wish, they're trying to plan their father's 40th birthday, and they want to make a big surprise for him, and it's fantastic. I absolutely love the Vanderbeekers. And that one, I don't think I had gotten a recommendation. That was the other one, in addition to the Fairacre Festival, that I read just because I love the series. And I'm sure somebody recommended to me at first. I don't remember where I first heard about that one, though. Next, I read The Haunting of Avalon Jones, what I just talked about yesterday. I saw this book recommended on Jack's channel, Spread Book Joy. And this is a middle grade book. And I loved this book also. It was just absolutely wonderful, by Phil Hicks. Next, I read The Diary of a Provincial Lady. And that one was, that is by EM Delafield. I forgot who wrote it for a second. EM Delafield. And this one I read as a recommendation from Miranda Mills. She's doing a comfort book club. So I read The Diary of a Provincial Lady with that book club. Miranda Mills has a wonderful channel. So I've had Diary of a Provincial Lady on my TBR in my Kindle for ages and never got to it. So was so excited to read it as part of the book club. And then lastly, I read A Holiday by Gaslight by Mimi Andrews, which is a Victorian Christmas romance. And it's a novella, so it wasn't super long. I think it was under 200 pages. And I saw this recommended by the Personal Cozy Project, whose channel I love. She's doing Vlogmas this year. She made the cutest little bag advent. She's opening up a bag with a cozy thing to do every day in it. I love it. Definitely check it out. And Holiday by Gaslight actually was a really good book. It's a romance, and it's set in the Victorian period where modernization, I think, is coming to the forefront. So it was a really interesting combination of, it felt very modern to me with the challenges to modernize versus kind of staying with the old ways, which I feel like we have a lot of things in common with that these days, although I think every generation has that, right? We all think things are changing so fast that we can't keep up, but I think every generation has felt that way. But this is a really interesting book because it did bring in some little nuances about things like that, about the gaslight in the title is the father is trying to modernize the home, trying to bring in gas, trying to bring in plumbing, and having financial difficulties, and is trying to marry off his daughters to someone wealthy so that he can take advantage of someone else's income. So it was a really good book. Definitely recommend that, and I'll pop that up here as well. So that was my November. It was a fun reading month, and I was so surprised when I was putting together my notes at how many of the books that I read were directly resulted from my participation here in BookTube. Just makes me, again, so grateful that I'm here, that you are all here, and that we are sharing recommendations and thoughts and ideas. It has brought me so much pleasure. So thank you for your comments. Thank you to other booktubers for all of your recommendations. Thank you to everyone who has done a buddy read with me. I've got some fun buddy reads planned for this month too. And I'm just, again, so happy to be here. So have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.